To talk more about that, let's bring in the CEO of a big leader in this space, Klarna, Sebastian Siemiatkowski, joining us today. And Sebastian, it's great to talk to you today. I heard you say yesterday that you were a little surprised that consolidation in the space has started so quickly. What does the deal announced yesterday, you think, do in terms of shifting the landscape in what is already a competitive environment?
Well, I think what we're seeing right now, at least for Klarna space, I mean, we grow over 100%, and in the US right now growing at 400%. It's quite crazy. We're getting close to 20 million users. So what I meant with saying it's early was just that at this point of time, everything is about a momentum. It's you may describe it almost like a land grab currently, to be honest. And I think, at least from our perspective, we're entirely focused on just that momentum and making sure that we are not disturbed by anything else. And so that's what's just surprised me to make this move at this point in time, because I think that, there will be a couple of 1 or 2 more years of that before kind of the market stabilizes slightly. And so we're very excited about seeing how that's going to play out. It's very exciting to see this massive shift away from credit cards to debit cards and buy now, pay later.
Yeah, Sebastian, you mentioned it. You called a land grab there. I mean, that was one of the things that Square pointed to, was kind of focusing in on younger customers, younger consumers who might not trust credit card companies as much. And I mean, what are you seeing when it comes to that in terms of who Klarna has been able to kind of tap the most? Is that always the case when you think about it? Because it doesn't necessarily seem, it'd be hard to kind of point to something where if you can pay your credit bills off, in the short term, that it has worked for years.
Right. But I think there's a couple of things, right? So first and foremost, actually, if you think about credit cards, there's a great study in the US that shows that credit cards are the most effective redistribution of wealth in the US, right? They take about $140 from low-income households and transfer almost $1,000 to high-income households through points and other things. They are all built around the idea of kind of pushing you into debt, pushing you into borrowing more and more. Revolving is a very confusing concept: high interest rate, late fees, overdraft fees, etc. And buy now, pay later is much more simplistic. It says to you, use a debit card, use that for all your purchases. Occasionally, when you need credit, like when you shop online, you may use a service like a buy now, pay later service. It's short-term installments for a short period of time. It has zero cost to the consumer. It's only merchant fee-based, right? So I think it's a massive shift that's actually been expedited by COVID. We've seen, as you probably reported and seen as well, I mean, in the last 1.5 years, $150 billion worth of credit card debt has been paid down. So this has accelerated the shift. And I think it's a healthy thing. I think it's good. People are dead tired of the banking industry and all their hidden fees and all their dirty tricks. And this is a better way of offering these services to consumers. So I think this is the beginning of a very major shift in this space.
Which may point to why we are seeing this space increasingly crowded. Apple, the very latest, at least according to reports, looking to get into this space. Apple Pay Later, I guess is what it's called internally here, but working with Goldman Sachs to offer this service too. How big of a threat does that create to Klarna?
I think there was a great cartoon showing this big snail coming and somebody say, oh, the big company is coming, walk for your lives. I don't know. I think there is a tendency for all of us to believe that the large companies will be able to do everything. And I just think it's very, very difficult as a large company to compete with everything. If I look at, we have been in this industry for 16 years. To us, buy now, pay later is just one feature, what we try to offer consumers and merchants. And I think there's some level of misunderstanding and just people are not fully appreciating just how big of this shift is and what it means and the quality of the product that it brings to consumers. But I don't want to laugh it away. I mean, obviously, we're always looking at competition, trying to see what other people are doing, and we're respectful. And Apple is a fantastic company, done great things. But we feel that we're in a great position. We have 100 million users worldwide, and we're growing at a massive rate. So,
yeah, Sebastian? What is that misunderstanding, you think? If you're talking about, go ahead.
No, sorry. No, I think the misunderstanding comes from thinking that it's just a piece of credit that we just offer a feature, which is buy now, pay later. If I look at the services that we provide, and I would say Afterpay as well as a good example, it's so much more, both for merchants and consumers. I think this is really the disruption of what retail banking has been about for consumers, where the data that you share with your bank historically, banks have used that only to try to make more money for themselves. And we're seeing a shift now where the data that you're sharing with your bank or services like ours are really put to use for your sake, to help you find better offers, help you find better products, to make you, save time, save money. And that's what fintech is about, is that transformation. And the challenge for the retail banks and the big traditional banks is obviously that not only do they need to really adopt all these new technologies, but they need to, from the depth, reinvent their business models, because their business model has not been consumer friendly. They have been friendly for bank friendly. so that's kind of the shift. And I think the feature of Buy Now Pay Later is just a way for us to offer consumers to get attracted. They want to try us out. And then they discover we do so much more than just Buy Now Pay Later.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear the confidence of you going up against an Apple, having raised more than $630 million not too long ago. But when you think about how you differentiate, right, from the other Buy Now Pay Later services out there, I mean, what are kind of the key things that you can do to do that, aside from maybe teaming up with specific outfitters, retail organizations out there? What's the biggest thing to drive consumers to your platform versus others?
Well, I would say, first, one big advantage that we have, obviously, is the geographical presence. We're already active in over 20 markets, which none of the other providers, I think the biggest one is in 4 or 5. And even when, that's a typical US perspective, Apple launches this, they're going to launch it in the US, the rest of Europe will probably have to wait for a while. That's usually what happens to us in Europe when Apple launches things. But the point is that, beyond that, I would also say, I think one of the biggest advantages Klarna has is actually that on every transaction we process, we do not only see the amount, we see the full digital receipt. We know exactly what items people have bought. As you look at your credit card statement or your purchase history with Klarna, you see images of the items that you bought. This makes it much easier for people to understand how did I spend my money. This makes it much more relevant to talk about what additional products could I buy that fit with products I've already purchased. If I want to resell my products in the secondary market, the richness of the data that Klarna has is unparalleled in the whole payments industry. And it allows us to provide all these amazing new features and services, both for consumers and merchants. That makes me super excited. And what's also interesting about it is that if anyone else would try to do the same thing, they would have to reintegrate with all their merchants. We're integrated with almost 100,000 merchants nowadays with that data. So I think those are the type of things that comes kind of in the second wave, why Buy Now Pay Later is kind of the opener that allows people to discover us as a new alternative to when they shop online or in stores.